and welcome to this episode of Everyday Enchantment. I'm your host, Stacey Andon. And as always, anytime I have a guest on, I get so super excited. Today is no exception. And actually, today it's like a little extra oomph for my guest, Jacqueline Gates, who, if you do not know her already, is the goddess of Leading Lady University and all things around, again, everything we touch, just being able to create enchantment and magic and practicality and all of that as well too. So if you don't know Jackie, she is been on 3 continents. She's been 25 years on stage, 15 years of entrepreneurship, a decade of coaching, and she, through all of that, has crafted a life that she adores living, which again, who doesn't want that for our own lives? And now she's claimed this leading lady of her whole damn life, and she's going to share with us how she does it, some practical ideas for you to do it today after you listen to this episode. I can't wait to have this conversation. Greetings. Oh, I did put a little extra sparkle on for you this morning.
I have my evil eye. Well, they're not evil eye. My special earrings, my most magical earrings on your behalf.
I absolutely love it. So, for those people who do not have the pleasure yet of knowing the entire aura and energy and magic that is Jacqueline Gates, I want to know a little bit more about how you have arrived at this place where you really love and adore your life. Like, what has led you to this place?
Nearly 60 years. This is the point where you say, you don't look a day over 55.
Never. I was going to say 45.
I love you too. Okay. So I was born in Nigeria, raised in South Africa, came to the States in 1998. In South Africa, I had 25 years on stage. I was a bona fide leading lady. And then came here and got really immersed in reinventing my life. Because it's like when you arrive here and you arrive in a new country and you've sold down a 5-bedroom house to 8 suitcases, you get the most glorious, clear stage, right? It's a new stage. It's a clean slate. It's like just reinvention central. It's the best thing. So, and then over the years, I've raised my 2 children, my 2 fabulous kids, and done all sorts of things entrepreneurial. I tried a very long time to sell other people, to sell products, I did network marketing. I had 6 failed network marketing stints. And then in 2010, which just amazingly lined up with all my astrological reinvention planets, right? I did what I called the great quitting. I went onto Facebook and said, I am done. I am done with all of this because it's not working. It hasn't worked with this and this and this and this and this. And so now I'm going to focus only on the common denominator of all of those things. And that's me. Ooh. And suddenly it went the equivalent of viral. Everybody's going, wait, why? And I'm going, because I have to find out how to craft a business around being the most me I can possibly be, because that's the only way it's sustainable, right? And so I started applying all my theatrical skills, my role creation, my set design, my wardrobe enhancements, plus some undercover magic that I wasn't really overt about at the time. I studied, I just kept looking at who am I and how do I beacon that out to the world? How do I craft and live a life that I adore? And it's now, like, it was so funny because in 2020, that was when we met. 2020 was the sort of second reinvention is, okay, now you've done all that Act 1 work. Now what does Act 2 look like? And that was when I started really owning this leading lady vibe and the theatrical magic and all of that. And then at the beginning of this year, well, middle of this year, I launched the first production of Leading Lady You. And it basically takes 25 years of theater craft and melds it with magic and brain science and coaching and all the things, so that you have all of you pointed at what you want instead of just one or two things.
I love this, first of all, because I have like a couple little threads I want to pull out. One immediately is this idea of just like the great quitting, because I think for so many of us, we've taken who we are and tried to morph it into whatever mold, right? Business, life, what have you, a spouse part, you name it, into
Absolutely.
something, rather than saying, hey, this is who I am, come get it.
Yes,
and
and
make
let's
that
find
the
something.
anchor.
Yeah, and let's find something that fits me rather than how do I fit that?
Exactly.
And look, there are plenty. I have glorious friends and colleagues who have landed in a business and thrived because it just happened to sync that way. It didn't for me. And I am far too much of a maverick, right? I'm very eccentric. I'm getting to really own that in my crone energy. But I tried. I really did try, and I followed all the rules, and I did what they said, and I had itty bitty success. But really, what was amazing was after the great quitting, and I had this viral video on Facebook, and so many people coming in. And then the following day, I said, listen, I know enough about role creation to know that I have to clear my office of the physical traces, the set design of somebody who is trying to build a network marketing business. And that meant going through everything and getting rid of all the brochures and the name cards and the samples. And I had so much that was just constantly yelling at me in my immediate space that said, you're failing. You're not using this stuff. Why is this stuff still here? Why haven't you sold it? Right? Plus, my bookcase was full of how to fix yourself things. So there was so much that I did. And so I did the second video and I was in tears. And it was like, and that really started my video journey because people wanted to know more. So I just started making videos. And I said, I'm the chronic oversharer here. But within 9 months, which is telling, within 9 months, I got a message from a woman in Australia who said, I have spent the last 2 days watching every video and reading everything you've written, and I want to know how to walk your path. Those were her words. And I went, I can show you how to walk your own path. You're not going to walk mine, but I can sure as hell show you how to walk yours. And she became my first client. I still had to phone somebody who was a coaching friend and say, okay, I've got this how can I say I'm a coach? Can I coach her? And she said, just show her what you do. It's like, I can do that. So, and she was with me for 3 years and she built a whole new business and a whole new life. And it was just amazing. And that's where my coaching started.
I love that because as soon as you gave yourself full permission to do it your way, right? And I think that's the amazing thing about coaches or guides or whatever the title is. It's like, it's not about teaching people how to do it our way. It's about empowering people to take control. For years in my 20s, it's funny, I really relate to this whole leading lady thing because I sat on the sidelines of my life. I watched my life kind of, unfold, but I was so afraid just based on my life circumstances at the time to do anything. And I remember 35, 36 was that first kind of awakening for me where I was like, okay, there was a me behind me that's like, enough of being on the sidelines. You're going to go to the front.
Yes. Yes, claim your stage. Absolutely.
Exactly.
And it's so interesting because I didn't come at this so it's been so circuitous, but absolutely perfect as I trusted myself, because initially with this woman, I was saying, okay, we have to do the theater stuff. So I would say, who do you want to be? What does she dress as? How does her house look? How does she do her housework? How does she show up for work? How does she mother? How does she eat? So it's very future self stuff, right? But it was taken only because that was all that I had at the time, was a reference for role creation, which I had done so many times that I knew how to do this. And then what was interesting was that she would, of course, because brains are going to brain, right? Her brain would then start saying, no, we can't do that. We have to go into the familiar because we know how to be that version of us. And then I would find myself not quite knowing how to coach her because I hadn't trained yet. But I had a suspicion because I had had really good theater directors who are kind of good coaches. They don't go under that title, but they are coaches. And so I was able to do that. But then what I realized was that I needed proper coaching skills. And so that was when I went and, started getting my training, started studying brain science, all that stuff to find out why my work worked. It was so interesting because usually people go, oh, hey, this thing works. Let me teach it. And I'm going, yes, my stuff works, but we've got 1,000 years of theater that shows that it works. But what I can do is help you bring it into your real life. And then I can also help you undo all the programming and the influences of who you've been till now that can color that and stop you leaping into the center stage. So, so then getting the coaching skills and then finding out all the affirmative stuff that said quantum physics says this works, has proven it works. Brain science proves why it works. Magic. I learned magic and I went, oh, well, I've been doing that. I've been enchanting my eyeliner and my, and my mirror work. I do mirror on the wall enchantments every single day. So I've been doing glamour magic without having that title. So everything I studied was going, you were right. Just own it. It's like, oh, okay. So that was where Leading Lady U came in. And, I had so many years of not making any money. I had to go into retail to pay off a $4,500 debt because I had tried to buy all my solutions without knowing this stuff. And then for Leading Lady U, I sent out one email and made $3,000. And it was
you know what? I love it because it just goes to show, again, when we're trying to be in another system or look for a fix for ourselves. And I think, and I don't know, Jackie, if you're like this, but I feel like I went on a lot of detours in my life to gather information too.
I think those are necessary.
Right. I don't think that I don't look at it as a failure anymore, as like, ooh, what was I wanting to experience and learn that either is helpful for me as a coach or in the work that I do, or just for my own life in terms of whatever that was. And I think that when you start to look at the lens of life that way, you're right. Like you have so much expertise, so much experience. How do you blend it in a way? And then you find out, hey, science is right there with you going, yeah, this is,
we're just catching up here. So because that's all magic is, right? Is something that science hasn't explained yet.
Exactly.
And I say all. It's because there's no causative effect. We say an incantation and we get a raise. There's no direct causative link here.
Yeah.
That's magic. But we know now from quantum physics and brain science that you are crafting your reality as you go along, and then you just navigate towards it. And that's what I do. I know that whatever you want to be, you've already got that role. Your whole life has been an audition up to this point, and you've got the role. So now you just have to learn the dance moves and the new words and maybe change your costume a bit and rearrange your furniture. No, not really. You can. A lot of people do. But it's like, change the set a bit and you're navigating towards that reality. But that reality is yours. It's there for you to claim.
Yeah, it reminds me of something I tell people. If you're feeling that nudge or that calling, I always say, like, the universe isn't like dangling that feeling in front of you because you're not supposed to get there. Or it's not for you. It's like it already is you. It's that what I love about your work in the world is like, how do we embody a self-confidence, right? How do we create a relationship with trusting ourselves in a way that sometimes is explainable, sometimes we don't always know, but that we go inward first before we look outward, right?
Mm-hmm.
For confirmation of, yeah, I'm doing it right, or what have you. And in this, like, you just ooze confidence in the most, like, again, I know that's why you're a magnet for people to be like, how do I do this? Because I think for most, the way we're all kind of raised in traditional education, it's like, it was very much the opposite of that. You weren't empowered to like figure your own life out and then do it your
No.
way.
Yeah, that's true. And I think people think they have to be confident before they do. I will say that you just have to be confident enough to start, and confidence is built. So
like
the
it.
reason I know I can do this is because I started feeling really shaky, but I started, and I rehearsed. And so the two parts of this is, so what you call the universe dangling is my theatrical analogy is that the prompt is always on stage left. So I see your future self as your prompt, right? You get these promptings. You say, oh, yeah, wear that color, or follow this email thread. You know how you get in breadcrumbs and suddenly you're on a website that's speaking to you, but you have no idea how you got there. That's that kind of thing, right? But our brains will step in and go, that's unfamiliar. Don't do that. You're wasting time. Let's just go back to how we've always done things. And so this is where our promptings have to be honored above our programming. So promptings over programming. I should write that down because that's really good.
I think you should totally write that down, because I'm like, that just sounds absolutely
See, this
true
is what happens. And there's so
juicy.
many ways to find out about yourself. I teach in Leading Lady You, I teach an interview process with your future self. But things that have added to my knowing are things like astrology and particularly human design. These are the things that have made it clearer to hear when my promptings are legit promptings, right? So, in human design, if anybody's out there like me, I am a role model. And so when I got the thing that said, you are a role model, it was like, oh, yeah, thank you. I am not a teacher. I am not a networker. I show up and be, and then I just show people how I be that. And then they take them, so it's such an interesting thing because my life is my work in progress, as opposed to a skill set that I learn and then hand over to somebody else to learn, if that makes sense. It's like that's where
Totally.
So a business person would learn how to do spreadsheets and SEO and stuff, and then teach you how to do that. I say, this is how I found myself. Now, this is how you can follow that, and let's help you find yourself. Yes. But I'm a beacon more than a how-to, but I do the how-tos because I know I know how to be the most you, and I just help you do that like a director does on stage.
I love that. It reminds me of a quote. I think it's Anne Lamott, so forgive me if I'm misquoting somebody here, where it talks about lighthouses, and it's like when you said beacon, it's like lighthouses don't go around the harbor like saving they just sit in their spot, and they shine and they radiate, and that's how again they attract.
Because I know that if I start chasing things, when I get that desperate feeling, it's like, oh, I really need another client, or really, I'm chasing that thing. Then the energy is so off that it doesn't work. But the minute I show up and go, here I am. Now, what are your other two wishes? Then the people who are right for me land in my world, and it's so delicious. The inaugural run of Leading Lady You has 10 of the most amazing women in it, and they are, and it was just one invitation. I just had to say, I've made this thing, do you want it? And it was really that easy. And it's not that just lands in your lap, but it can come faster than you ever anticipate when you stop trying to be who you used to be.
I love that, because I think that you're right. The brain is going to say it's always going to be hard. It's going to be a struggle, and I can't. And you're right. 1 minute, you're in whatever that energy is. And then as you practice and rehearse and just get started, all of a sudden it happens to my clients too. People are like, it always starts with, you're never going to believe. And I'm like, if anybody's going to believe, it's going to be me.
Yes, it'll be you.
Right. And like this. And what usually people say is this thing came out of nowhere. And to your point, yes and no.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In terms of that. And I think you're right. It's like, are we willing to take those first rehearsal steps or practice steps and we don't have to have it all figured out. We don't have to be fully encompassed in whatever that, confident swagger of our future self is yet. What is right now today something that you can do that will absolutely just, again, expand the energy of that, the energy of this new, this new role, this new leading lady that you want to create.
Yeah. And for me, it's what I found out is the neuroplasticity of it all is that when your brain, because we always say, when I see it, I believe it. Right. So I go, so find a way to see it. And I go, so it's like, put it in your environment. Your home is a magic wand. Use it. Set it up to look like how you want to be living. So that's what I started doing when we got here. And we only had 8 suitcases of stuff, just most of it was children's stuff. And then I went on to HGTV and I saw all these things and I'm going, I don't know how to do that, but I know how to kind of do that. So I would then go to Goodwill, get something that looked sort of like that, put some craft and some magic into it, and craft as in, paint and handicrafts.
Yeah, little work.
Something that looked like what I was aiming for. And so I was building this set around the role I wanted to play. And now, that's where we start in Leading Lady U. Is like, let's get you a spot in your home that makes your future self feel at home.
So if somebody was just listening and wanted to just play with the idea of that, where would you kind of direct them to start?
I would say start with your own space. So I always do this, like most of us live with somebody else, right? We share our spaces
or
with
others.
Yes,
multiples.
So if you are autonomous, it's much easier. But if you live in a communal, like a family, then you'll need to pick a space that is yours, a sovereign space. So your bedside table, your part of the closet, your side of the bathroom cabinet. And that's where I started, because I had ended up on the spiral and got down. And I'm not saying it's the lowest area, but it was the least me that I had ever been. And I was working as a barista at Starbucks. And I don't want to be able to say I'm just a barista. I don't think anybody should put just in front of themselves, right? Because it diminishes. You are not just a barista. You are a barista. And then, so I was talking to one of my favorite clients about this, and he went, oh, you're not the barista. You're the goddess of lattes. And I went, hell yes, I am. And so when I went home, I thought, okay, so if I'm the goddess of lattes, and here's the protocol, right? If I am that, how do I dress? If I am that, how do I set myself up for work? Where do I go for lunch? What do I do? So I started wearing my Starbucks uniform, white shirt, black pants, but I was wearing 4,000 Chanel pearls, like all fake, obviously, but like a neck full of pearls, or I would wear huge earrings. I had the most glamorous face. You can't do your nails, but I was excessively dressed.
Like the goddess you are.
Yes. And so people would come in and say, can the goddess make my drink, please? And I was like, oh, I love this. And then I decided lattes was lovely, but I don't want to be a barista all the time. So the goddess known as Jackie, because I'm not so hubristic to say I am. But I can be a goddess known as, right? So then I started being the goddess known as Jackie. And to this day, like last month when I was in the Sky Lounge at Delta, some person shouted across the lounge at me and went, wait, is that the goddess? I was like, yes. But so and then so what I did then, to bring it back to where we were, is that I took my side of the double vanity in the bathroom and I made it look like a theater dressing room. I put good luck notes on the wall, and I had my makeup set out like I used to have in the theater. I changed I hung a feather boa on a hook, And I had, so this whole side of my, of the bathroom looked like Marilyn Monroe would feel at home. Like she would just walk in. And then my husband's very Virgo side is all clean with just his toothbrush and his hairbrush and his deodorant. Just those things. Mm-hmm. But my side is full of stuff. And so what it did was every morning, first thing, my home, that portion of my home reminded me of who I am. And it influenced me so clearly that now my whole house is like that. Because if I forget, if I get wobbly, if I have a disappointment, which happens, I look around and you go, if I believe what I see, I'm doing okay.
Yeah. First of all, there's so many ways and reasons why I love all of this. And I just, as somebody who, I haven't really talked about it too much on the social show, but I've been in this huge reorganization project that started it's funny. It started just with my pantry that was messy. Mm-hmm. And it ended up being this huge, just absolute project all summer that I absolutely loved, which I'm not usually a fan of, like just going through things, but it felt, to your point, that it had such an anchor to who am I in this moment? How do I want my home, right, to be with me? How do I want to feel when I cross the threshold of that front door and come in? And I only want, which was a big deal for me, things that really, really encompass that. Anything else. And it's funny because, to your point about you had brochures and things from network marketing, I still had things, and I didn't even realize this, like from my first marriage. And so that to me was a chapter that has been closed. And yet I still had the energy of some of that hanging around. And I realized, as I have felt very much this year as a precipice again of coming into even just a deepening of, I don't even know how to put words around it for my own self.
Yes.
Yeah. That it was like, that has to go. Like, I know sometimes we think, oh, it's just stuff. And I know I've said that to myself. And what I have learned from you is, no, it's not. And the more intentional we are with everything around us, everything we touch, that we interact with, you're right. You're absolutely whether we talk about the actual science of it, or to me, the magic of it, that's the enchantment that we have so much control and choice over. And even a little spot, even if I had just done my pantry, I'm sure that would have made a huge difference.
It'll spread. That's why we start.
Well, that's what happened.
Because beauty spreads, right? And your particular flavor of beauty, whatever that is. So, my husband and I have diametrically opposite visions of beauty, but it spreads. It goes, it goes. It can't help it. Beauty is the highest vibration that we have. And, it is the physical reality of love is beauty, right? If you love something, you see it as beautiful. Doesn't matter whether anybody else sees it as beautiful. It's yours. You see it that way. Therefore it is. And so when you create something that is beautiful, like your tidy pantry, it's like, well, I want more of that. How can I make more? Well, I'll just do this cutlery drawer, or I'll just do this part of the stove or something. And it spreads. I know that when somebody will put a bouquet of flowers in the middle of a dining room table, they will tidy up around it. It is natural. We all know we do this. And so let's do it for ourselves, because we're enchanting our environment to support us blooming, right? And that's what it is.
And I love what you said too around this idea of we all are the magic wand. I say that as well too. It's like not even just having the wand, but being the wand. Where are we directing it?
Yeah, where are you pointing that thing?
Yeah.
Very careful. Yeah, and and the thing is that we get programmed to point it a certain way. I was a convent raised girl. You don't toot your own horn. Yeah. That was my thing. Don't brag. And yet I was doing incredibly well in theater. And yet I wasn't allowed to say anything about it, which gave me all these wiggly things that I had to undo later. Especially when, you're doing something like this where self-promotion is so important. But is it bragging? No, it's just acknowledging how brilliant you have turned out of your own direction. And so when you acknowledge that, and I've forgotten why I was going this way, but it is this idea that you get to be not just the leading lady, but you have creative control. You are the director, you are the script writer, you are the wardrobe mistress, and you're probably also the gip and the busboy and the coffee girl too. So it's just like, you're probably
there's real human. Yeah,
of course,
exactly.
Which is why when we start with our homes, we start to rehearse this in the safety of our own four walls amongst an audience that hopefully loves us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when you start playing with it, and then you get to be safe enough and certain enough to bring it out and take it out into the world and show up as the most overdressed person in the coffee shop, or go grocery shopping in a ball gown, which also happens.
We would have totally loved each other if we were in the same town. I know I would be like, I have to have a goddess cup of coffee every morning.
For sure. Absolutely.
I would have been in on that. And I think you make a really good point. One of the things I talk about too is like how you start your day and how you end your day are so important. It's like the bookends of life to me. And you're right. If you're in your closet and you feel just like not even like terrible, but you're just like,
I call those winces. Anything that makes you go is a wince. You mustn't have those.
Yeah, no. And I don't know if it's just this process and again, this unfolding, but the more I realize like that matters just as much as whatever I'm kind of doing in my business, because to your point, the more we kind of tend to all of that, it flourishes and creates these kind of results where again you can say one thing and you have 10 people lined up for an offering or a program. And absolutely. And it's like, because I think you're so when you're in that kind of leading lady energy, you're so in your integrity. And it doesn't mean you're perfect. That's not what we're saying at all. But there's this integrity about it. And it shows I was that person who had, like, when in my first marriage, I always cared what people, the outside appearance, but I never let anybody in my house because it was a hot mess. And so there was incongruity, I'm making up words. Between, right? And so I'm sure that came across to people, even though I didn't want it to. And now I feel like so much is in alignment that whatever that is, however that is, it's like, I don't know, the spaces really nourish us too, I think.
Yes, they do. Absolutely. There's Buckminster Fuller talks about that. And then my favorite quote by oddly Winston Churchill says, first we shape our spaces, then our spaces shape us. And he did that. He said that after London was obliterated during the Blitz and they were rebuilding. And he said, we have such a choice. So let's shape our buildings to shape us. And so and that's how it is. And really, to your story of not inviting anybody in, if you were the leading lady of your own life, why would you live somewhere that you didn't want anybody else to see?
Yeah. Well, because I was living a life that I didn't really want to be living. I know you know that.
Yeah. So this is how when you start claiming little bits of your space, it gives you courage.
It does.
Because you say, this piece I can own, this piece I can take command of, this piece I can control and enjoy and relish and see myself in. And then that blooms. And it's not true. That it's easy, and it's not that it's effortless, and it's not that it's natural. When I say natural, in other words, you still have to push against the reality that's already there, but you have impetus, you have oomph behind it because it's you and you know who you are.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
I think that's such a brilliant thing to say. The more you absolutely are in your you-ness, it is easier to do the smaller things and the things that are going to require, like when I got divorced, how did I summon the courage? And you're right. There were all these little moments before of me reclaiming parts of myself that led me to feel brave enough to do the big thing. And not that everybody has to do that, but when we all get to moments where we want to make some kind of big
and anything like that, there are lots of times in life where you're making that big commitment, right? And it's a commitment. Am I going to commit to who I used to be, or am I going to commit to my future self? Am I going to commit to the version of me that I want to experience life as? And that's where you go. And the more you can, and then hopefully have a coach or a confidant or a community that will support you in mirroring the version of you that you're aiming for, because sometimes you can forget, right?
Yeah.
Then you get there, and one day you look around, you go, hey, so this is my life now. That's cool.
And to your point, it does tip. I know the brain's going to tell us it's going to take a long time.
Doesn't have to.
It doesn't really in my life. Even I've gone through so many transformations, even in the last 10, 12 years. It absolutely, it's to your point. Once you say, I'm choosing, it doesn't have to be completely like steadfast, but you just say that and you start to make that steps. And again, whatever it is, if you get halfway through whatever this is you've created, I'm sure your clients have had that happen and be like, I don't know if I like this, right? And
exactly.
then
I always go, plot twist. Let's go, plot twist. All right.
Plot twist. I love it. Oh my gosh.
And then you just rescript, because here's the thing. You can't know how a scene will play until you play the scene. You cannot know how that, we don't have that facility on life that they have in gaming where you can save where you are, try this adventure, and if you don't like it, you go back to the saved point and try another one. That would be so good. They should have put that in. But we don't
next
do that.
iterations.
So we just have to trust that if we get halfway and we decide that we're building a ladder against the wrong wall, we have our back. We know that we can change our minds, and it says nothing about us except that we have new information, and we get to change our minds.
I could just hang out with you forever and
totally.
We should totally do this again, because I know we're going to have many, many other topics that we're not even going to get to today. So I am thinking there's going to be a lot of people. Well, first of all, I want to ask you one question before we get to how everybody can get connected with you. So if you were listening or you want to just impart one kind of Jackie like piece or bite of wisdom today, like just as we kind of wrap up, what would you want people to take with them as they leave this conversation today with us?
That if there's a version of you, a future self that you have always secretly yearned for, or that you're aiming towards, know that you're already a vibrational match for that you have already got that part. You have done the auditions. You need to stop doubting that the part is yours and start learning the set, rearranging the set, learning the words, do the new moves, say the new things, whatever it is, but never doubt that version of you is available to you, and start working your way towards it.
I got goosebumps. I love it. I love. I can swim in the waters of your enchantment all day long. So now the best question ever is, where can people find you if they're like, yes, I need Jacqueline Gates in my life, which who doesn't? How do they get connected to see all of this goddess energy on a regular basis?
Well, I am my main social media thing of choice is Facebook.
Okay.
Of choice. It's like that's where I just happen to land. But you all would be very well served to go to JacquelineGates.com, so with a hyphen. And there you will find my backstage letters, which is where I get in touch with everybody and I tell them all the stuff I don't share on Facebook. And then also there is an advance notice. So if you are interested in doing Leading Lady You with me, or some of my pop-up programs. So I do little short things like 5 days of finishing stuff, or 9 days of nesting, or whatever. I do these little tiny things. They sell out really quick. And so the advance notice list allows you to find out about that before I tell the masses. So
the globe at large, where it goes out.
Right. So
I feel like
billboard goes
messenger
out.
birds and owls that share the, tell the world.
I see mine as a billboard on Times Square, right? So before that one goes up, I'll send you a hand engraved invitation. And that's on my advance notice section on my website. And it's easy. It's right in the banner. And that would be the best way. But you can also email me at Jacqueline@JacquelineGates.com. And I would love to chat. So
I love it. We will put all of that information in the show notes. So people will be able to easily find you and connect. And Jacqueline, this is like, again, the best. Like, it's like when you wake up and you're like, this is going to be such an incredible day to be able to.
I was so looking forward to this, and COVID got in the way, and I'm so glad that we managed to make it happen.
Yes, we will always persevere as it's written in the stage notes.
Because this was an inevitable iteration of us, right?
Truth, such truth. And I just love the way you bring your own unique magic. The world is not the same without it. So to me, it's such a pleasure to hear the way it all kind of comes together for you, because it always inspires me as well too. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'm already thinking we're going to need another episode sometime.
I would love another episode. Yes,
Yay!
let's do it.
All right, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's it for now, loves. Thank you for tuning into this episode. Get all the juicy details and links we've mentioned in the show notes. If learning more about how you can use your own enchantment to live a oh hell yes life, come get your own coaching session with me by going to staceyandon.com and signing up for my homepage. And as always, come chat with me about this topic and all things enchantment in my Facebook group, Everyday Enchantment. See you on the flip side.